So welcome to you on this Friday evening. The title of this one, as I'm sure you know, is Who Am I? Who am I? And we're going to be looking at why is this question so fundamentally important in spiritual self-realization, and what does it reveal? So let's get stuck in straight away then. So who am I? Who am I? Now, when we're looking at this question, if you look at this purely from the space of mind and thought, ego mind, then the answer that's going to come back straight away when the question is asked is all going to be to do with the story, the person that you perceive and believe yourself to be. So you might say I am, and then your name, and you happen to be a woman or a man, and you have these experiences, these relationships, these possessions or various other things. And we one of the big things in life has been in the conditioned state is we believe first and foremost that we are the body, and then the experiences of the body, and then the relationships of the body, and then the possessions of the body, and then even things like the job of the body or the roles of the body, like I'm a mum, I'm a dad, I'm a managing director, I'm a whatever. The list of things that you can put of after I am this is absolutely endless. And it's these kinds of associations and identifications, attachments and belief that you are all of those things, which are really the blocks to the realization, because you're basing your whole experience of life around these identifications, attachments and beliefs. Key amongst those is the belief. And you'll have heard me say on previous streams, the fundamental block to self-realization is the belief that you're not already the realized self, the infinite silence, the infinite or absolute self. This one belief contains within it all the other beliefs. They're all just subsets of that. So what we're talking about when we're asking the question, who am I? We're not talking about the personality. And in fact, actually, we're not talking about anything to do with personhood at all. Any form of human identification. That, if we're wanting to sort of label it in some way, would be the small I identity in the human form, the egoic identity. And that which we're seeking, indeed everybody ultimately is seeking, is the capital I, infinite I, the infinite silence. And so on the wisdom cards that I hand out at the events that most of you have, those overseas haven't probably got them. There's this piece about this question, who am I? And it says this, who am I? The question dissolves the questioner, and the self is realized. Let me say that again. Who am I? The question dissolves the questioner, and the self is realized. What does that mean? It means that this personal identity, this is the one that is dissolving. And the full exploration of that question, beyond personhood, beyond attachments, beyond all those things I was listing before, when there's nothing left but silence, absoluteness, infinite silence. This is the dissolution. It's the dissolution, the breaking down, the dissolving of all of that identity, all of that egoic identification, until there's nothing left other than just simply absoluteness or pure awareness that is not aware of things. It's just simply awareness, an infinite field of awareness. And because all of that is before space, before time, that is eternal. And so the whole process, if you like, or the processless process of self-realization is about dissolution. Sometimes I refer to silence as the universal solvent, and it is the universal solvent. The more that one opens to the possibility that one is this infinite silence, the more and more there's dissolution of the character identity, the ego, the mask is being taken away, and nothing is left. So who am I? The question dissolves the questioner, and the self is realized. Now when you're asking that from space of ego, mind, head, you're only going to get personhood as an answer. So the trick we're looking to do is go beyond that, to transcend that. And when we look at the infinite silence meditation, one of the first steps, apart from noticing the body, bringing attention to the body, that's usually the first thing I say in that meditation, is to get you to notice that there's, first and foremost, there's a body here. Even that can be forgotten at times. Then we go to a very important step of saying, being open to the experience of beingness. That's just the state I am. Nothing after the words I am. Just being. Once all of the labels and all of the words after those two words I am are dropped, all you're left with is pure I am, pure being. And this is the universal being. It's not a personal being. Not a personal being. This pure I am is not a personal being. Just going to say hello to Lois and Leotilda, who have just come on. So we need to look at what's going on here and see who or what is it that is observing all of this. So let's take your senses for a first. Now, when you're looking with your eyes, or hearing with your ears, or tasting with your mouth, touching, these five senses, you don't typically say, I am that which I see, or I am that which I hear, or I am that which I taste. You just treat those as senses. The same can be said of thought. Thought is observed. Now, if you start to catch the train of thought, then thought will continue to ride along and the train will just keep on going. But if you take a step back and say, oh, that was a thought, and simply observe that, then the thought train stops. Who is it that's doing that? What is it that can observe this? That can observe sight, can observe taste, can observe touch, can recognize my voice, that can even observe thought? It means that there's an awareness. There's an awareness that's higher than those, that is simply observing. Then when we step that back further still, like we do in the infinite silence meditation, and notice beingness, pure state, I am, universal, non-personal. What could possibly witness that? That is a higher awareness still. And that is then the step into, if you like, or the transcendent point into the silence, the absoluteness. You remember that stream that we did? I talked about, it was called Beyond Phenomena, from awakening experiences to absolute self-realization. And I said in that stream, in the absolute, there is no experience. There's just absoluteness, eternity, infinity, absolute silence, pure awareness. Whatever words you want to use to point at it, none of the words are it. So any phenomena, starting with our senses, thoughts, even beingness, there is a phenomena there of aliveness. None of those are who you are. There's something behind or before all of that. That is just simply silent. And even the witness that I talk about is birthed from that. So we're coming back to before the state, the universal state. I am. You are before even the I am. Before even the I am. Even the I am is birthed from the absolute. And hence the way the meditation goes, we go body into beingness, and then we go before that which sees beingness, the witness, and then we go even beyond that into the absolute itself. I'm just going to say hello to a couple of people. There's a new person here, Andrew. Yeah, welcome to you, Andrew. That's Andrew Lewis. And also Lee has come on stream as well. So we go back to that little thing I was saying. The question, who am I? The question dissolves the questioner and the self is realized. We're dissolving first all this kind of idea of personal identity, all these phenomena around the things after the word I am. And once those have gone, just left with pure beingness, even that is being witnessed or observed. So you must be before that. Pure beingness, the realization of pure beingness that I also refer to as spheres of light, this is a very, very beautiful state of awareness to have. And you can perhaps get trapped into the idea that this is it, but it isn't. Experientially, that's very pure, very beautiful, because there's no identification, there's no attachment, there's no belief in that, there's just I amness. And we might call this the perfumes of the silence. We would experience I amness as, in the body vehicle, as love, peace, grace, joy, gratitude. We use these words, and I'm talking about pure love, pure grace, pure joy, for no reason, no event-based joy, not time-based, not event-based. Very, very pure. These are like the perfumes of the silence that are experienced through the I am. Very, very beautiful, but that's not it. Even that is not it. Because even that is phenomenal. It's a phenomena. And the absolute is before all phenomena. And the mere fact that those phenomena can be observed means that there's a higher awareness still. And it's that. It is that which is always here, always unchanging, unmoved essence. I sometimes also refer to it, or it's sometimes also referred to, not just me, as the unseen seer. The unseen seer. It can't be seen, there is nothing to see. Sometimes also refer to it as the unmoved mover, i.e. that which gives birth to experience through space, time, and the physical domain. It's before all phenomena, before and beyond all phenomena. Absolute. So going to our question, when we're exploring that, we can know that if there's a phenomena attached to it, we're not that. A thought, no, I'm not that. A sensation, no, I'm not that. Being, I'm not that. Before all of that. So when it comes to spiritual inquiry, which is a fundamental part of, traditionally in many spiritual traditions has been a key part of the realization processless process, or the journeyless journey, because one is already this. When somebody asks a question, really all of the questions that have ever been asked all come down to one thing, and this is a case of what I call a case of mistaken identity. The questioner who's asking the question has forgotten who they are, and so suffering, as the Buddha called it, is present. There's some misunderstanding going on here about who you really are. And so there's confusion, there's suffering present. So when anybody asks a question in a satsang type session, or a gathering in grace as I sometimes call it, the answers are always really very simple, because one sees straight away that where the fundamental flaw is, and it comes down to identification with personhood, because the absolute has no such issues. It's perfect, whole, complete, eternal essence, and that's who you are. So it's very easy to see when a question is being asked where the personhood identification, where the belief is, where the attachment is, where the identification is, and point to beyond that. To point beyond that and see that the one that's having the experience, that's having the confusion, isn't really who you are. And dependent on the degree of openness and receptiveness in you, and the willingness to look beyond, will depend upon, or will be the degree to which one can see that. And the more that one allows to drop away of these accoutrements of identity, whether it be form, man, woman, all the things that go after that, all the stories and various other things, and go, actually, no, I'm not any of those, I'm not any of those, I'm not any of those. There's something higher here that can see and witness, observe all of that. The more willing one is to drop that, the deeper the seeing becomes, the less the suffering becomes, the more clear the sight becomes, the more clear the knowing becomes. So when we can use this question, this who am I question, even as we go about our daily business, as like a kind of meditation, even when you're walking down the street to do the shopping. An experience comes up, or maybe you're triggered by something, or a thought comes up, and we can sort of look at this and go, hang on, what's going on here? Who am I? Who is the one that's having this experience? Who is the one that may be struggling with this thought, or has been triggered by the situation? And who is the one that can report it? That can observe it's actually all going on? If you identify with the experiencer, then you'll be in suffering. If you step back and can notice that a phenomena, a thought, a sensation, a trigger is being able to be reported, and this witness is completely neutral about it. Now we're starting to step into awareness. So the instant thought comes, oh, that's a thought. I can't be that because it was observed. It's a phenomena. I must be before the thought. Or emotional triggers arisen. Oh, there's a sensation there. I am before that. Trusting and opening to that actually you are the infinite I that is before all phenomena, before all sensation. And if you take this choice, and it is a choice, you're immediately dissociating from the phenomenon, and you're stepping into just simple awareness. And the deeper that step, the quicker that trigger, that thought, that phenomena is now not controlling you, so to speak. You're not suffering. So this is a very simple meditation, walking down to who am I? There's thought, not that. There's sensation, not that. There's being, not that. Witness, and then even before the witness, the absolute. You can use this as you go about your daily business, whether you're doing the dishes, walking down the street, whatever you're doing. This who am I question, really looking beyond who is the one that's experiencing, who is the one that's witnessing, and what's before even all of that. This one simple exercise, if you did it 10, 20, 100 times a day for the next week, looking at this who am I question in relation to phenomena being experienced, trusting that there's something before all the phenomena, you're going to start to notice a shift in your attention that's going to come from here, up here, and it's going to start deepening up into the heart space just by exploring this one question. This is the fundamental question. This is the only question, really. And then even that question dissolves the questioner and the self is realized. Who am I? The question dissolves the questioner and the self is realized. Realized because one is already it. Remembered, recognized, realized. You cannot not be this. And it is this that is the realization. Oh my goodness. This I is an infinite I. It's beyond all phenomena, and it's here now. Let me just have a quick look at a couple of the comments here, and then I'm going to carry on. So Andrew is saying, yes, the highest mysteries are opened by the I am. The absolute is the supreme foundation of all experience, the experience. Yeah, indeed. So what we're pointing at is even before, as beautiful as the I am is before even that. And I'm talking about the universal I am. I'm not talking about a personal I am here. Before even that. Even being is birthed from the absolute. And then we start to personalize being, and we call it human being, and then we call it, my being, and we start to get into trouble there. I'll come to that question in a moment, Lynn. So now here's a beautiful thing that came at the monastery last Sunday. We were chatting with Nicola, who was over lunch actually, had come to the event for the first time, and she suddenly had the insight over lunch. She said, it's like an eye for an eye. Now you've heard of the phrase an eye for an eye, but not in this context, I suspect. This eye, and I said yes straight away, it's that. This eye, the small identity eye, for the big, capital, infinite I. This is the true eye for an eye. We're transcending the small identity I and realizing the infinite I. It doesn't mean the small I is bad or wrong or something like that. Actually, the absolute, let's say, has chosen to experience and express itself. It's only with the identification, the attachment and the belief in this small I where the problem occurs, the suffering emerges. But if we're prepared to swap, so to speak, or transcend, perhaps more accurately, the small I, the big I is realized. And then we can be in this world, but not of it. That's what that phrase really means. You know, we are the absolute, and it's experiencing itself, but it still knows it's the absolute. So in this world, you know, it's taken form, but there's this constant knowing, this constant awareness that one is the absolute. An eye for an eye. You can say that either way around, it still points to the same thing. The true eye for an eye. So just concluding this bit on the spiritual inquiry, the reason that's so important is that we keep on and not taking for granted that which we think that we know. We may, so for so long you've been thinking you're a person, you have this body and this story, and then maybe an experience unfolds that invites you to look deeper. You know, there must be more than this, and it's the exploration of this who am I question fundamentally that's going to take you there, stripping away all of the layers, not accepting anything less than the absolute truth. No, I'm not this body, I'm not this phenomenon, I'm not this sensation, I'm not this emotion, I'm not this thought, I'm not even being. There's something before even that. The instant you start to recognize that all of these phenomena are being observed, then we're on a good track. We're starting to see that there's an awareness here that's watching. We eventually get to the silent witness, and then even that drops, and there's just awareness. Not of anything, not of phenomena, just awareness. That's the self. That's the self. Awareness. That's all. No story attached to it, no time attached to it, no space attached to it, no phenomena attached to it, no thing attached to it, no belief, nothing. Just awareness. The question dissolves the questioner. The small I gets dissolved. The big I is realized. So to come into your question, Lynn, what you showed me in the open gaze is that the absolute? Well, to some degree, it depends what was there for you. The phenomena is not it. The phenomena is not it. The bodily sensation that you may have experienced is not it. But if there was a pure knowing, just a knowing, this is the awareness, a pure knowing, not of things, just knowing. This is awareness, this is the self. It's beyond description, indeed. No words. There are no words. words I might use, or indeed anybody else, no matter who you perceive them to be. It cannot be put into words. It can be signposted, if you like, or pointed, or give an indication of, or perhaps use a metaphor to give an indication of it. But even those are not it. They're just, if they're coming from the inner absolute space, then they'll carry what I call the energetic signature of the silence. And even those two words, infinite silence, that I use most, to hear those in the true depth, you will notice there's a deep pointing to the silence within them, because they didn't come from this space. They emerged as a, if you like, a gift from that self to itself, to realize itself and to be used to help others realize that same self. So this who am I question is always fundamental in spiritual inquiry. A question gets asked, the first thing that is being noticed is who is the one that's been asking the question, what is the belief, attachment, identification that's associated with it, and then you can see where the misunderstanding lies. It's really incredibly simple. So that's what, again, just to reinforce, this is why I say silence is the universal solvent. This awareness, field of awareness, is so pure, so powerful, it will just dissolve all of the identity. Egoic identity doesn't like this, it becomes fearful about it, but eventually we could say it gets cornered, so to speak, and just gives up the ghost, and then the identity drops and the self is realized. So you can use, as I say, going back, you can use this who am I question even as a simple meditation going about your daily business. Who am I? Not the thought, not the sensation, not the emotion, not the being, before all of that. And the more that you recognize that higher awareness, the more you're associating with it, the more that you become or realize that which you already are. It is so simple. So simple, in fact, that going in search of it, we can't find it. Accepting that it is here, we realize it. And that leads me to one of the other things I have on the wisdom cards. It's about realizing, not seeking. The seeking is going in search of something, and which will never be found. That's why it's a realizing. It's about finding, not searching. The searching is just another word for seeking. It's about finding that actually it's already here and I am that, but not in a personal sense. No sense of personalness attached to it at all. Finding, not searching. Realizing, not seeking. Seeing, not looking. When one is looking for something, typically we're looking beyond and outside the idea of the personal identity. This is about seeing that it's already here and that one is that. As Rumi put it, you are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. In fact, you are the ocean, and you've never not been the ocean. And the ocean has chosen to create the experience of this drop, that drop, and the other drop, but it's still the ocean. Like the fibre optic lamp that I've used many times. Oops, bring it across here. You're thinking that you're this point of light at the end, when all the time, actually, you've been, oops, the universal sized power behind it all. And remember that level, the light, the source of the light of all of the fibers is the I am. Before even the I am. An I, small I, for an I. Simple meditative practice. Who am I? Who am I? Use this 5, 10, 20, 100 times a day for the next week. When anything crops up, it's a meditation within itself. Don't associate with anything phenomenal. Just be open to that which is beyond all of that. Watch what difference that makes. And if any questions come up, just look at who is the one that's got the question. Is that you? Is that you that has the question, or is that question also being observed and witnessed? And when you see that you are not the questioner will dissolve and take into its ultimate resolution. The self is already here. And as we say on UK television, with these meerkats with broken English, simples, meaning simple. It is that simple, really, folks. You're this infinite silence, this infinite self, this awareness. You've never not been that. Let's just have a look. There's a question here, I think. Andrew Lewis, it says, it's so simple that, I'm not quite sure what that word is. Ima, ask you why realizes, I'm not sure if I follow your words here. I am that, chill, dope, an entire ocean in a drop. Universal size power, like it small. Okay, I'm not sure entirely. I'm following what you're saying there, Andrew. I think you're just kind of summarizing what I was pointing at. Back to the question, who am I? Who you are is the non-personal essence, the infinite silence. From that, all that is birthed and to which all returns. That's who you are. That's who you are. And this does not require any belief in the words that I'm using. Truth is an experience, not a belief. Truth is an experience, not a belief. A realization, in other words. So we're not going to try and add to beliefs. We're going to drop the beliefs, and the realization becomes inevitable. If there's one certainty in the universe, is that you are this in the non-personal sense. And if you're prepared to drop the story of who you think you are, again, the realization is inevitable. Why would you want to hang on to the story when there's this absoluteness to be realized? Why would you do that? Nothing wrong in it. I mean, feel free. Feel free. Feel free. No judgment in the absolute. We can make a choice. You know, goes back to one of the myths I was exploding last week. You know, this idea that it's only for the special few or something, or only the special one. No, nonsense. We are all that. It just appears that you've not realized it. Just appears you've not realized it until you do. And then you can have a good laugh. Ha! That was some game I was playing. A virtual reality game. Fab. So, that's pretty much all I wanted to say, really, folks. So, any questions on that? Hopefully, that I can follow, if there are any. It really is this simple, honestly. I would not say it were it not so simple. This kind of will, should we say, sidestep or go beyond mind. Mind, in many ways, cannot comprehend the absolute simplicity of it. You won't get it. One doesn't think one's way to realization. One is the realization. One is the realization. And so this kind of dissolution, dissolving the questioner, is also dissolving misunderstanding in the same process. The case of mistaken identity that I've spoken about. Until it's realized. Boom! There we are. There it is. There is the infinite I. The true eye for an eye. Bingo. Okay, enough from me. Any questions before we have a meditation? So there's a question there from Calvin. I'm not sure. What is your opinion on the German NS regime and the Holocaust? I'm not sure what the German NS regime is, and I'm not sure I have an opinion. What I can offer, though, is any form of strong identity that's taken to an extreme. Any form of identity. You can look at the whole of the history of the human race, and any form of identification with the small I, taken to its absolute extreme, expressed in dictatorships or whatever. All of this is a function of over-identification with this small egoic I. And this I, when it's taken to its absolute extreme, seeks to impose its worldview on all others, and can bring about great suffering, not only for the perpetrator, but also for millions of others. It is this strong identity with that, taken to its absolute extreme, that leads to war and regimes like the Nazi regime, like many other regimes throughout history. It's just that, this identification, that leads to that. Lesser degrees of that lead to personal suffering that we experience even without war. But it's the same thing. It's the same thing. So I don't have an opinion. I have our own pointings to truth. That's all. Any being that has ever lived on this planet is still this infinite self. It doesn't excuse those actions that have caused great suffering, by the way. There's always a choice. We are always at choice. When inner peace is realized, outer peace becomes possible at last. It's not the other way around. When inner peace is realized, outer peace becomes possible at last. So that's pretty much all I have to say on that. What's D saying? D saying, enveloped and dissolved by the soothing silence. Again, it's happened many times today, and it doesn't take much at the moment. And if I'm not dissolved, I feel rested in the awareness of the isness. Fantastic. So keep marinading in that space, D. There's a deep dissolution of the small I that's taking place there, and that's why it feels so rested. And it's always here. So embrace this. Just keep on embracing that. Keep on marinading. And let this become the natural place. Let this become the natural place. For it is indeed the natural place. Tracy's saying, thank you so much, Philip. As always, I am learning so much and your meditations are phenomenal. Yeah, I just want to say something about that. You're very welcome, Tracy, and indeed all of you are welcome, equally welcome. You know, may look like from the space of mind that we're learning here, but we're not really learning, because ultimate truth cannot be learnt. What is happening is you're remembering, and that remembering gets deeper the more the small I identity dissolves. So it appears at first like a learning, but actually in truth it's a remembering. And the reason that you have an aha moment, for instance, is because that you actually already knew this. It's just now bubbled up to the surface. So good, I'm glad it's been beautiful for you, Tracy. Half has a mind of its own. Yeah, perhaps it does. You're very welcome, Nicola, for the time. It's a joy to share. You know, what I was pointing at there, all suffering comes from this single identity. That's all. It can be the kind of two extremes I often refer to are the dictator and the shrinking violet. They're both forms of ego. They're just expressed differently. One, unfortunately, can lead to huge human suffering. In the other case, it tends to be more individualized, although that can bring suffering around people around them as well. But it's all the same. It's all the same. It doesn't mean we haven't a choice. It's always at choice. We are always at choice. And the choice is this: do I go with the highest truth, or do I go with ego, the identification, the attachment, the belief? And if you go with that, suffering comes. If you go with truth, you'll go through a phase of releasing the trauma, more than likely, to open, to flower into the realization. What's Louis saying? It's feeling a bit more natural to connect to the silence, able to let the body go through what it's feeling more and more. Good. And that more naturalness is coming from your deeper trust in it, Lewis. And in a way, really that which you're connecting to is that which you already are. There's a question here. Can you speak about how we forgot? Good question. I have touched on this on other streams, but very simply, if in using this fiber optic lamp metaphor, and we think that we know one of these points of light, the personhood, the body, the identity, then in very briefly, in the expression in the form a baby is born, and you ever notice babies, they sort of do this, they touch various parts of their body a lot. They're sort of exploring this form like it's something a bit strange to them. What is it? And eventually, you sort of do this enough, and with reinforcement from parents who also have forgotten, the awareness starts to think that it's the form, and that gets reinforced. It's given a name, it's given a sex, it's given a religion, it's given a set of experiences, and more forgetting goes on, the more and more identification with the form and its story happens. That, simply put, is how you forget. Hopefully that answers. So then we get to a point where we ask the question, there must be more than this. It may come from us, a trauma often, or some profound spiritual experience, and then this invites us to look deeper, and that's the remembering starting to happen. So hopefully that answers your question in brief, Tracy. The thoughts are floating on a lot easier too. Yeah, great, Lewis. And that means that they're being watched and witnessed, and that you're not the thoughts. That you're not the thoughts. Lee saying thank you. You're very welcome, Lee. What's D saying? When the dissolving overflows into life outside meditation, which it is with me at the moment, it can feel disorientating. Is there anything that can be done to overcome that, or is it part of the process? Okay, there's a few things here, D. This is why the marinating phase, another reason why the marinating phase is so important, because there tends to be a rush from the former identity that's been dissolving to want to get back to how things were, and to start to try to sort of be how things were. And so this is why allowing plenty of time and space to integrate and let the body catch up to where the awareness is so important. I want to get on with this, but just allow some time. The key is there isn't ultimately life outside of meditation. You become the living meditation. Listen to that carefully. You become a living meditation. So meditation isn't then something that you do. It is something that you are. So as you allow it to settle and anchor, you will find cognitive processes and so forth that appear at first to go a little bit offline, but just allow that, embrace that. These will come back in their own time, and you will be able to function, but don't try and rush it. The disorientation that you're talking about, it isn't you, the true you, that is disorientated. What is disorientated is the old identity. The old identity has been disoriented. So just watch and witness this disorientation. Just watch and witness that sense of disorientation. That's coming from ego mind. And in witnessing it and allowing it, that also will dissolve. This is also a phase that's being passed through. So marinade, marinade, allow space, allow time, witness disorientation because you're not that. So the answer to the final part of the question, yes, it's part of the process, and the more that you can allow and witness, the faster it will pass. And then you're going on to say, I feel like solid stroke physical things are not solid at the moment. Well, actually that's true. They're not solid. Physics will tell you this actually. It's something like 99.99999% space. And then even the 0.000 whatever it is, 1% that's not space is energy compressed into, electrons, neutrons, elementary particles that are also, turns out, are also just energy. So there isn't really anything solid, it just appears to be solid. So you're now seeing that clearly. So hopefully that answers your question, Dee, but if you want to add to that, let me know. Marinade. Asha's saying, is what you explained to Dee's question a possible answer to my clear, vivid, non-lucid dreaming? Is what you explained to Dee's question a possible answer to my clear, vivid, non-lucid dreaming? I think I might need you to say a bit more about that, Asha, just so I can understand what you're saying there. In the meantime, Dee's, okay, I've just been worried that I'm not functioning and sometimes not feeling like safe, like I'm going to fall out of bed because I can't feel it. Yeah, so the one that's worried there isn't you. So witness the worry. It's ego identity trying to get back in on the act. Just simply allow, marinade, trust, and the cognitive functions and so forth will come back. Just be open to insight as to what it is that's unfolding and let that emerge. It will emerge naturally. So just be open to insight, and if need be, you'll be given some insight, some pointing as to what is going on. So again, if you want to talk further about that, give me a shout after the call, Dee, but hopefully that's enough for you now. I'm just looking to see if Asha's got any clarification there on what she's asking about. I can't quite relate it to what I was saying to Dee there. Mine appears to be dreaming on the astral plane, or is it the soul trying to communicate with me? So this, okay, I start to get a clearer picture now. So I don't know what phenomena are appearing in this, what you're calling a dreaming state on the astral plane, but no doubt there are some phenomena there, but they're still phenomena. So, who is the dreamer and what is the dream, and who is seeing all of that? Who is witnessing that? Who is observing that? So the dream and the dreamer are just phenomena, but there's an awareness that can see and report that. You are the awareness. You are the awareness. Hopefully that helps you, Asha. Okay, thank you. There's a part of me that's excited about the process and finding it funny also, even though part of me finds it, it's a bit of both. So just watch those, even the one that finds it funny and even the one that finds it scary, even that is being observed and witnessed. Just allow that. It is kind of seen as funny. Often people, as the realization flows, there is a laughter because it's seen that one has woken up from the dream, so to speak. So just witness. For instance, my grandson was talking to me in clear sentence. Head 4 months, something like that. I'm not sure what that final bit is, Asha. So you were obviously hearing this or witnessing that in the what you were calling the dream state, and this is also a phenomena, and all experiences, all things are in the field of consciousness, and it's like you're tuning into one facet of that, but even that is being watched. Oh, in a dream that lasted 3 hours. Yeah, okay. So just watch what's going on here and notice that you're the awareness. Oh, he's 4 months old. Okay, right. Yeah, in the form, he may be 4 months old, but that's not who he really is. He's the absolute too. And so the consciousness being expressed in his form is unfettered by the fact that it's only a 4-month-old baby. And so it's able to communicate at another level. Consciousness speaking to consciousness about consciousness. So you may think of him as 4 years old, but actually he's the infinite silence. So you're connecting there at a deeper level. In human terms, he may be 4 months old. In the absolute, it's eternal and non-personal. Yeah, indeed, cats talk to me in dreams. You know, consciousness is expressed in infinite variety. There's nothing that doesn't have consciousness in it. So we can connect with anything. So hopefully this answers your question, Asha. But have a wonderful weekend, folks. Thank you very much for coming. Sounds like we've had a good stream, some good questions. Have a beautiful weekend.